Okay, it'll take it about 10-15 seconds. Okay, we're live now.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the June 13th CVTA Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. Janice, let's go ahead and do roll call and certification of a quorum, please.
Okay. Town of Ashland, Miss Amos. Miss Amos,
Here.
thank you. Charles City County, Miss Russell.
Here, Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Chesterfield County, Miss Smith. Miss Walker.
Here.
Richland County, Mr. Coleman.
Here.
Mr. Goyne.
Here.
Thank you. Hanover County, Mr. Vadunez. Mr. Flagg. Henrico County, Chair Yor.
Here.
Miss Meidler. New Kent County, Mr. Stodder.
Here.
Miss Leduc. Powhatan County, Mr. Shardine. City of Richmond, Vice Chair Clark.
Here.
Mr. Bridewell. DRPT, Ms. Dubinsky. Mr. Wagner. DDOT, Mr. Mann.
Here.
Mr. Riblet. Ms. McAdory. Virginia Port Authority, Ms. Nelson. GRTC, Ms. Torres.
Here.
Ms. Sink. Plan RVA, Mr. Parsons.
Here.
And RMTA, Ms. Dean. Thank you. That concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, Janice. Next item would be consideration of amendments to the agenda. Chat, do we have any amendments that we know of?
No, sir. No amendments.
Okay, very good. Next item 2, approval of the May 9th CVTA TAC meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes, and does anybody have any changes?
Chair, I move that we approve the minutes for May 9th.
All right, thank you, Dorena. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. All in favor, please say aye.
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 For the record, I will abstain because I was not present at the meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Next item would be public comment. Do we have anybody registered for public comment?
No, sir. No one's registered.
All right, very good. Next item would be the CVTA TAC Chairman's report. I have nothing to report other than I assume during the July TAC meeting, we will elect a new chair. And I will relinquish my seat of almost 2 years now. So thank you for enduring me for that length of time. Next item, regional project prioritization. Chet, you want to start out on this one?
Sure. This is not an action item on anything. We really wanted to make sure that this committee had an understanding of where things are. Finance committee met last week and discussed kind of what the options are right now and where commitments have been made. The first item, 5A, the state budget, the conference reports have come out. The governor has not yet finalized the budget, and I think is, from what the news is saying, is considering some other actions. But what we know right now is that I believe it's FY 22 and 23, the next few years at least, There have been commitments of 320,000, 320 million for I-64. That what's been identified as the gap. So between exit 205 and 234 in James City County, with an additional 150 million for a future year, assuming that state revenues come in where they're projected to come in. There will be some additional surplus, and 150 million of that would be dedicated to the I-64 project. There is an application in for federal assistance that VDOT submitted for. And I think that, Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was in the amount of $150 million ask. And we'll see the CVTA has committed its support for that application. And then we're looking at other additional commitments of to see what Hampton Roads might be willing to commit on the James City County side of the project, as well as CVTA commitments. There is a full authority meeting scheduled for Friday, where this discussion will be on the agenda. So that's kind of the quick overview of where things stand with the budget. So right now we know that assuming revenues come in, there is a commitment at the state level for $470 million to go towards the overall estimate of $750 million, which the state has shared, with an additional 150 million application for federal assistance. So there's still a gap. There's still a additional amount that is necessary, and we are staff is working with the authority members to see what the appetite of the CVTA is for helping to fill in some of that outstanding amount. Before we get into the smart scale application, one thing to note: late Friday we had a request come in from VDOT to add the I-64 gap, at least in our study area, to the long range plan for the TPO. So on that side, the TPO will be considering tomorrow the addition of that project to the long range plan, which, as most people know that puts the project in better standing for applications for federal money and other sources, to know that project is in the long range plan. It does not impact, we'll discuss the details tomorrow, but it doesn't impact other projects that are in the long range plan, because that's the commitments that have been made right now are from outside sources that weren't built into those budget expectations when the long range plan was adopted. So things are starting to become a little bit clearer in terms of I-64. The item 5B, the existing smart scale application, we had a pre-app that was a carryover from the last round, which the TPO submitted again as a regional pre-application for the section between exit 205 and 211. And the amount there was not obviously not the full 750. That has been screened in, so that is an option if necessary. We weren't able to change the scope of that application to expand it to the whole length of I-64 that's necessary. So if needed, after other options are considered, that is still an opportunity, but there may be other things that are discussed by the CVTA before we get to the point where that smart scale application might be an option to use. Mr. Chair, I think that's the quick overview. I'll turn it back to you to add any other comments or open the floor to questions.
Sure. Any questions for Chet on that item?
Yeah, Chad, I got
Chat,
one
Ronna.
question.
Okay, you can go ahead, Austin.
All right, thank you. You said the exits were for the Smart Scale app 205 to 211.
That's correct.
Okay. I guess were they planning on, maybe they didn't know at the time, were they assuming leveraging any of the state budget funds for that portion, or were they trying to get like the full cost in the Smart Scale app?
I think that's part of the discussion right now.
Okay.
That application was from round 3, round 4, whatever the last round was.
Okay.
So at that point, there was nothing in the state budget for I-64.
Right, okay.
So now we're just trying to figure out if we can get some utility out of that kind of predefined project extent, or if there are other options to consider at the state level for realizing the whole length.
Okay. Thank you.
Dorena?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, that was, just piggybacking off of that question. So whatever amount that the full authority considers, there's potentially a number of ways that those funds would be applied to contribute to the overall project. So, for example, in the Smart Scale application, they intended for a CVTA regional funds to leverage that application. So there could be a dollar amount to leverage that application, as well as potentially another dollar amount to leverage another part of the project. I guess, is that like some of what might be discussed?
Shane has his hand raised. Can you help with that response, Shane?
Yeah, thank you, Todd. The state's preference is not to use Smart Scale for this project. We're looking to fund it outside of Smart Scale and not go through that process, which would be beneficial to everyone else because it frees up that money to go back to other projects and not be dedicated to 64. And I think based on the current funding scheme, if everything comes together with the federal grant, the CVTA and HR TAC, we will be north of our current estimate for the project. So I think we would not need Smart Scale funds. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Dorena, did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Austin, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, so I guess if my math's right, that's 470 in the state budget, assuming all revenues meet the projections, which I guess we can assume that for now. And then if they get the $150 million ask from the federal government, that's 620. Shane, correct me if I'm wrong, the original estimate or the most recent estimate was 750.
Approximately 750. Yes.
Okay. So then I know the ask of CVTA was round number 100 million. I mean, that puts it just shy of that number. I don't know what the ask is of HR TAC. I guess would the ask of CVTA change at that point to be proportional to how much of the gap or the straw, as the secretary alludes it to, is in Hampton Roads region versus the CVTA region?
I think the intent or the ask from each agency was 125 million. I know CVTA considering 100. That's assuming we get 150 from the federal, which is an assumption at this point. So I think we're just trying to cover our bases.
Gotcha.
So
the ask of CVTA is actually 125, not 100. Is that accurate?
That's what the secretary asked at our joint meeting, 125.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Follow-up questions for Chet or Shane on this? Shane, I have 2 questions maybe you can help with. The 150 million asked from the federal grant, is that a binary? Either you get the full amount or you get 0, or is there a possibility they could award it at a smaller amount?
It's variable, so it's not yes or no. It's could be anywhere between 0 and 150.
Got you. Second question, to my knowledge, we at CVTA have had no communication with HR TAC. Has a similar ask and response for HR TAC been made by the Secretary's office, and have they gotten a response on commitment from them?
I'm not aware of any response, but I am aware that the ask was made by the Secretary to HR TAC. So,
Gotcha. Thank you.
mhm.
And this is a question for Chet. We had made a request through the CTB member, which I assume was communicated to VDOT administration and the Secretary's office for a presentation to the full authority on this project in terms of some of the details, since it was clear at previous CVTA meetings that, you know, that as a body, there's a lot of, I guess, unknowns and questions that maybe they could answer to guide the CVTA towards some resolution on this. Do you know if we have anybody coming on Friday for a presentation?
We do not have anyone lined up to do that presentation right now. I think the scheduling was difficult, but we'll continue to try and get something set up.
And Shane, I guess for your benefit, I assume you're aware that that ask has been made, and if there's any communication you can reiterate with the VDOT central office or the Secretary's office, that would, I think, be helpful.
Absolutely. I'll pass it up the chain, sir.
Thank you. All right, any other questions on this item? Okay. We have other items to cover under 5. Chet, are we moving on to 6?
No, sir, that's it.
All right, next item 6, FY23 final allocation plan.
Yes, thank you very much. In your agenda packet on page 6 are 3 pages of projects that have been identified by TAC members in the FY23 local allocation plan. For those following at home, this is basically the expenditure plan that is set up by each jurisdiction in terms of what they expect to fund using CVTA dollars during the FY23 year. So we did have response from just about everybody in terms of expected projects. It wasn't, I mean, obviously it's not mandatory to include projects here. If you don't have plans to expend funds during the fiscal year, we don't have to list anything. This is really looking forward to kind of setting the table so TAC is aware of the funds that are expected to be spent this year. And so that we can position ourselves by the end of the fiscal year to account for those funds that were expected to be spent, see where they stand, and be able to do our annual certification this time next year for those funds. I did want to note one typo. Chesta, I guess you're the one to look at. There's, I think, in the 6th column or the 6th row, there's a TBD for Chesterfield. I just need to remove that because we have the projects down lower in the table. So we'll make that update, but I think everything else is current and fresh. And if we do get other projects, anyone who hasn't submitted anything at this point, please get them to me as soon as possible and we will add them to this table. But for what we know right now, heading into the new fiscal year on July 1, this is the local allocation plan as it stands.
All right, thank you. And for the good of the group, if somebody has revisions to this plan, the ask is to provide you an update at any point we're aware of the change, or do you want that on a scheduled submittal?
I think we can do quarterly updates, probably to follow the practice we use this year.
Okay. So,
but as soon as anybody knows anything, just send it our way. It's not a huge lift to update everything, update the tables.
got it. Thank you. Any questions on this item? All right, that moves us into item 7, fall line working group meeting. Chet, do you want to kick this off? And then Eric needs to weigh in on the SPA and if Shane has any updates.
Yes, I think the first item may be best covered by Shane, but I think the CTB was hoping to get the design build items on the agenda soon.
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak to that, Todd, Jet. Yeah, I think we got some deadlines looming here that I'm going to make sure everybody's aware of. Internally, to meet the July CTB meeting, we have a June 24th deadline for submission for that. So that means we have to have it all formatted, put together as it would go to the CTB and turned in on June 24th. There is no CTB meeting scheduled in August. So if we don't make the June 24th deadline to get on the July and September meetings, then that means we would not get on the agenda until August, September and October. So October would be the best case that we get this approved. And there's also no meeting in November. So we have a very weird time frame here. We're trying to get something approved. So if at all possible, we really need to make this June 24th deadline. That gives us 11 days. Hopefully we can pull it off and get everything put together for presentation to CTB by the 24th.
Thank you for that, Shane. Do you need anything from this group for that task?
I don't know the answer to that. I'm gonna look to Eric and see where we stand. I know there were a couple, I thought, very minor comments, but it seems to me we could get it done, but I'll lean on Eric a little bit.
Yeah,
Great. Eric, go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can make that deadline. I think we've exchanged comments on the SPA, and as Shane mentioned, they're pretty minor. So I looked at what I got back from Shane's team late last week, and it looks good. Chet submitted some follow-up comments, but that was just information about, notice or who to send notices to and that kind of thing. And so I think we're there as long as those comments can be accepted. I think the only point of contention was a fairly minor one about the word all in one of the paragraphs that I suggested we strike. But other than that, I think everything was accepted by the VDOT team, and with those changes, I think we're good to go. And so the mechanics would be, Shane, that would the CTB expect it to have a signature on it from the CVTA before it gets to them, or how do you want to work that? I think that's how we did it last time when we had the main agreement.
Yeah, I think that's their preference, is to have it signed by the other party before it comes to them.
Yeah, so if your team wants to go ahead and accept those changes consistent with what I submitted and what Chet then followed up with, and format it as you see fit, then you can send it back to Chet and me and the rest of the TAC, I suppose, and we can put it on the next CVTA meeting agenda for action. Is that okay, Chet?
That's Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're going to meet the June 24th deadline, we need to take action this Friday.
Yep.
So we can make it happen.
I'll make sure you get it back ASAP, Eric. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, then we'll be good. Then you guys, the CTB, can take it up in July, and we'll have our first SPA under our belt, hopefully, at that point. And in the meantime, after, as we've discussed before, we'll need SPAs between the CVTA and the City of Richmond and Henrico County to govern their respective portions of the trails. The overall SPA that we have between the CVTA and the CTB/VDOT will govern the fall line trail projects in the other jurisdictions. So we don't need SPAs. It's my view that we don't need SPAs between the CVTA and each respective jurisdiction. We just need the overall one with VDOT and CTB, and then with Richmond and Henrico, because they are administering the project within their specific jurisdictions, whereas in the other jurisdictions, it'll be a VDOT project. So if everybody's in agreement with that, then I think we have a clear path forward. And Richmond and Henrico have the template. We've circulated that so they can let us know if that's acceptable with all the changes that we've most recently exchanged. And if they're okay with that, then I don't see any reason why we can't move forward with those two.
Thank you, Eric. Yeah, it's on our to-do list, so we haven't forgotten about it. And I'll look to Dorona to see where they are on the city end of it. She's nodding her head, so I see.
Yeah, I haven't passed the template on to review. So Eric, if you can send me the latest one. I see one in our agenda packet. I can use that one. But a soft copy would be better probably.
Yeah, what I'd suggest maybe, Dirona, is once Shane gets with his team and they finalize it with the most recent changes, then we'll take that and get it up to you and Todd, and you all can take it from there. I think we'll probably get that maybe before the end of today or tomorrow at the latest. So should have that to you very quickly.
Thank you. Question, Eric. So the agreement you're talking about for Fall Line that will be to the two localities that are administering at this point, which is City and Henrico, is that pretty much going to be the same agreement that will be used for the regional funding going to localities that would be administering those projects as well?
That's correct. That's been what we've discussed for some time now, and what I believe is appropriate, just for consistency's sake. Of course, obviously, we'll switch out the respective parties, and there'll be some minor tweaks here and there, but that's I think the plan that we've discussed.
Okay, so when we review this one that you'll be sending out for Fall Line, we should really be reviewing it with the lens of any locally administered project with CVTA funds.
Yes, I think that's safe to say.
Right. So this may be more of a check question, but because they're, as the other regional funds for the other projects get allocated, which we assume will be happening soon enough, some of the other localities that will be administering, such as Chesterfield, will need the same agreement. So do we want to, once you get this final version from the state, do you want to go ahead and send that out to everybody that will be administering?
Yeah, I think, well, I would suggest we take that, what we get back from Shane and his team, and circulate that to the entire TAC.
Yeah.
And then everybody can take that as, look, this is what any future SPA is going to look like. Not specifics, but
Yeah.
this is the template that we're going to be working from. So take that under advisement, and if you need to run it up the chain, please do so. So we'll move forward on that with that understanding. Now, obviously, there'll be little changes here and there for each jurisdiction in their projects, but that will be the template.
Got it. Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Questions? Chessa, you had your hand up, but now you don't. Did your question get answered, or did you?
Yep, you covered us with your question.
I could read your mind.
Chair,
Yes, Dorana.
I have one comment. So this is from the Finance Committee, which I gave the TAC report. They were very adamant that they would like to begin to put some of the regional funds in different investment funds, and that because we have not begun to program and allocate the funds, they're unable, the treasurer, Chesterfield, is unable to really know how much money needs to be sitting in the bank, and how much could be invested for a year without us needing it. So I don't know And it would be, we stated that the SPA agreement is holding that process up. So as we look to resolving the SPA agreement, I think we really have to begin to think about how we're going to program those funds and utilizing them. And I know we have the executive director process going on, but it's going to fall in our lap pretty soon, meaning the TAC, to be figuring out what direction to tell the authority, the finance committee, on which dollars we need today and which we might need at a later date.
Timely question, Dorena. Chat, you want to run with that one?
Yes, so a couple things that we've been, I guess, building a list that we need more information on to address that exact question. We've been working with the financial folks in Chesterfield to get answers to this. And one, we want to look at, I'm going to do some research on what NVTA does. The question is about reimbursement and or front loading project costs. So we know when funds are needed. So we want to look at what the other authorities do. NVTA is a lot more applicable than Hampton Roads because of the nature of the regional funding. We also need to understand where things are with, I guess maybe this is a good opportunity to ask Shane about design build. How does that funding process work in terms of when funds are needed? Just trying to build an understanding of the authority's funds. What's the likely time frame for when those funds are absolutely necessary to have in hand, and how much of that can come at a later date? Because I think we're looking at probably 6 and 12 month time frames for tying up or for reinvesting CVTA dollars, regional dollars, to get better interest rates and those kinds of things. I think the first, sorry, thinking on my feet. I think the first expenditure of regional funds is going to be for design build for fall line. So I don't know. I don't think there's going to be any requests for sooner commitment. So that would help, I think, Dorena, kind of clear the way for understanding at what time we're actually going to need to have our hands on the money and how much return we can get between now and then.
And if I could chime in on what Chet was saying, Dorena, the good news is interest rates generally are going up. So if you invest for 6 months as opposed to a year or longer time frame, if you take that same money and reinvest again in 6 months, you're likely gonna lock in a higher interest rate. So it maybe makes sense to take a conservative approach near term until we know, when and where the money needs to go, with the understanding if we have short durations, you can likely come in at a higher interest rate, in the foreseeable future.
And I think that VDOT, I don't think they were going out, they're expecting the process to be ready to go until December or January. So that's almost 6 months now. And then if we even just take out what portion of the CVTA funds are needed for the 2 design builds, it may be then, recommended that the rest of it could be invested for the 6 months in some form to buy us time, but yet to have the finance committee seeing more return on their dollars than they are seeing now.
Yeah, that valid point. Shane, you had a comment?
Yeah, thanks, Todd. Hey, the SPA itself, if you go and look, it has the fiscal years and the dollar amounts that we would be looking for, at least on the northern design build. And as soon as we get moving on the southern, putting that SPA together, will have the same detail. So that would help definitely plan in the expenditures.
Thanks, Shane.
So, Shane, do we have a timeline on the Southern Design Build piece for when that's going to be ready to, I guess, track the northern piece?
I think we'd probably be looking into this year for the northern one, and then early spring with the southern one. So early next year, I would imagine. So 3-4 months behind, maybe.
Okay, so for investing and financial purposes, they probably should be treated together.
Unless you're doing very short-term investments, I would say so.
Yep. All right. Does that help you a little bit, Chet, for follow-up?
Yes, thank you.
All right, thank you for that question, Dorona. Yeah, we had a call with Chet and Miles this morning to talk about that very item. So, all right. Anything else on the item 7? All right, hearing none, moves us to item 8, CVTA TAC member comments. Anybody have anything for the good of the order here?
Mr. Chair, I was just going to remind everyone, if you hadn't, who's on the fall line committee, that we did get the draft design guidelines, and they're looking for comments this Friday. So if you're like me and it was buried in your inbox, so get to reading.
Yes, thank you for that reminder, Chessa. It's a lot of information in there. So we'll, speaking on behalf of Henrica, we'll do our best. But yeah, and hopefully Shane, you and your group have scrubbed it pretty good. I know y'all had some comments that went back to Tool.
I'm sure it's perfect at this point.
We have the utmost confidence in you and your team. So, yeah, thank you for that, Chessa. Anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I got one question.
Yes, sir.
Are we confident that there won't be a revote for this funding scenario?
Good question. Chet and Eric, I am going to turn it over to y'all to, I guess, help answer that question in light of the conversations in preparation for this Friday's meeting.
Confidence is a tough one to nail down. I don't know how things will play out.
Right. I noticed it's not on the agenda. I was talking to my policy board member today, and I guess the only real catch would be if somebody makes a motion to talk about it, which I'm sure could probably derail the entire agenda, given that, just with the snag that the voting tool had, I guess, with the specific scenario regarding this funding scenario. But just wanted to know if anybody had heard or anticipated anything coming down the pipeline for Friday.
I don't know for certain what might happen.
As it stands now, it passed, correct?
That's our approach. Yes, that's our understanding. Okay. It passed, but there may be some desire to allow those who voted against it to vote for it. So I don't know for certain how that's going to be handled, but as of now, it's our view that it's been approved. Despite or per the vote that occurred on that day. But there may be a desire to revisit it so as to allow people to reconsider what their vote was at that time, but I don't know for certain.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Eric, I'm not, correct me if I don't say this right, but I think Robert's rules allows for other ways for this type of thing to be readdressed in a meeting that doesn't need to have it explicitly listed on the agenda.
That's true.
Gotcha.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Austin. It was certainly relevant. All right, anybody have anything else? All right, hearing none, our next meeting for the TAC is scheduled for July 11th. So we will continue on the virtual format as we go into July, correct, Chet?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I do have a question regards to that. If anyone has a good locality summary, if you have people that do this kind of thing of House Bill 444 and the FOIA requirements, I would love to see that so we can assess how we're able to meet over the next year. So, thank you.
Yes, so actually that does raise a good question. So you're currently the Plan RVA offices are located in the city of Richmond, correct? So
Correct.
I guess y'all are taking the lead from the city's guidance on that, correct?
That's correct.
Then your new location, which will be in what, September,
Still
October
city.
time?
Yep.
Still the city. So I guess you'll continue to, I guess, look towards the city and their guidance for at least the initial interpretation.
Yes, that's how we're operating right now.
Right. I think we'll revisit HB 444, Chet, if I may, Mr. Chairman. I'm sorry to jump in,
Sure.
but we'll take another look at that. I think what Chet is suggesting is that HB 44, I believe, provided greater allowance for regional bodies to meet and all public bodies perhaps to meet via telecommunications meetings, such as the way we're meeting today. But we're going to be taking a look at that, as will a lot of council and a lot of public bodies. So as to adapt to those new allowances. So we'll take a look at that and advise accordingly.
We appreciate that. My only ask is that any changes in our format, please make sure that gets communicated out well ahead of time so everybody can adjust their schedules accordingly.
Yes, sir.
All righty. If there is nothing else, we may adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.